Well, good afternoon for those that are watching. This is Greg at Caring Sunshine. We've talked before. Caring Sunshine, we're a distributor for Nature Sunshine. I actually wore a Nature Sunshine shirt today, which is unusual for me because I usually like to wear t-shirts with no branding whatsoever. Um, but anyway, excited tonight to have Dr. Shannyn on again talking about probiotics. And so I'm going to put her on in a second. Before I do that, I just want to say that I don't know if you guys, most of you have not eaten probably yet, but I'm feeling a little sluggish because I just had an incredible meal. My wife is an incredible cook. And so I just ate. So I'm from the South, Atlanta. And so she makes this dish. It's country fried steak. Do you know what that is, Shannyn?
I do.
Country fried steak. So it's a steak that she beats it. It's like a tough steak. She beats it forever. And then she cooks it like for, I don't know, 6 hours. And then it sits. And basically, by the time you can sort of cut it with a fork, and it's in a gravy. And then this is all really, really bad. Um, that's the best part of it. Mashed potatoes, which the way she makes mashed potatoes, not healthy, but great, unbelievably good. And then, okay, fried okra. Do you know fried okra?
I think so. Yeah. Yes. Did you take your digestive enzymes with the?
Oh, you're really ruining the vibe.
Maybe I need a probiotic, but yeah, that's my day so far. Or my I've just came out from that, setting a very very bad example, but really an amazing meal. Anyway, I'm going to turn this over to you. Let me say this up front to those that are watching. Two things. As always, we appreciate your business at Caring Sunshine. We're so excited to do this, to give back a little, but you guys give a ton to us and always have with your support at Caring Sunshine. The other thing I want to say is we got a lot of questions for for the tonight, and there's no way we're going to get to all these questions. No way. So I want to say that up front. Don't be offended if we don't get to your question. I'm going to try to sort of consolidate questions into broader topics and get those to Dr. Shannyn to answer when she's after she does the initial presentation. Um, but I really want to say this. We probably don't say this enough, but I just want to remind people that Dr. Shannyn is available for consultations. We do that free with a free service that we offer to our customers. If you ever, if even if you don't want to do a consultation, you can email those questions. And so I was looking at the questions earlier, and there's a lot of very specific questions that are sort of, in some cases, personal questions that really, in a lot of cases, probably should be, first of all, they're complicated. And then secondly, they're personal. And so I want to encourage you guys, if you don't know about this, go to Caring Sunshine and look for the link, bottom very page where you can contact Dr. Shannyn. You can send her an email, or if you want, you can do a 15-minute presentation. As I always say, the presentations are not only free, there is no sales pitch in the presentations. Um, these are not thinly disguised attempts to sell you anything. They're just our way to give back to our customers. You will not feel pressured to buy anything. If you ask, we'll give you recommendations, but that's not what this is about at all. So take advantage of that. Some of you guys, even though we try to tell you a lot, I know that some of you still don't know about that service. And so I just wanted to remind you that as we get started. Okay, so that is what I wanted to say up front. Again, thanks for being here, and I'm turning this over to Dr. Shannyn.
Well, Greg, I did have spinach today for dinner. Uh, we had leftover spaghetti with some of my favorite noodles, lentil noodles.
Oh
Lentils
my goodness.
have lots of protein in them. And then we also did have steak. But steak can give you a lot of good energy, especially if it's not overdone. But let's see, what else do we have? Oh, I had a salad too. So just since we're talking about what we're having for dinner, I thought I would just bring it up. I hope most people did eat. We are going to dive into the bowels a little bit.
Absolutely. Hop in.
So I think one of the most common problems, or one of the most common questions I saw in questions that were submitted, were about digestion. So I wanted to go there first, especially when it comes to bloating and gas. So typically when people are bloated, they're talking about gas. Sometimes they can also talk about burping. Sometimes it can be both. It can be coming out both ends. Sometimes it's just, coming just mostly flatulence or gas. And then sometimes folks are bloated without having either. And it can cause a lot of discomfort if they're not able to get rid of it. So some of the causes of gas and bloating, digestion is a big deal. Some of the easier reasons are because we get in the habit of eating really fast and we may be gulping air with our food. It makes it a little harder for our body to eliminate that extra gas. Also, we have bits of food that we're eating, and if we're not chewing well, there's large pieces of food that are going into our stomach and then into the intestines, and the digestive enzymes have to surround that food. So the smaller the food is, the easier it is for the body to surround it with digestive enzymes and digest it, as it has a certain amount of time to digest before it moves to the next step. So sometimes if it's still digesting as it gets further along in your gastrointestinal tract, going into the small intestine and so forth, you can have a lot of gas because of that, because it wasn't able to finish the digestive process in the stomach like it's designed to do. Let's see, food intolerances can cause a lot of gas. So sometimes it's really hard to identify food intolerances. Sometimes it's easier. It'll happen right away. You'll get a little tingling, or you'll get a sore throat or have trouble swallowing. I see a lot of patients that have trouble swallowing, and we can connect their food intolerance to chicken, which is really interesting. That seems to have a specific affinity for the throat and being able to swallow. So there's a lot of different symptoms that we can get, and some of them will last 4 to 10 days before you can get a symptom. So it can get really confusing. I have a hard time remembering what I had for dinner last night, let alone 4 to 10 days ago, and trying to connect the dots. So making a log can be helpful, but there's also food intolerance testing that can really just take the detective work out when you're scratching your head trying to figure out what to eat and what might be bothering you. So that's another reason why people have bloating. I wanted to touch on, let's see, the gas, as far as eating too much. And digestive enzymes. Digestive enzymes, by the time we hit our 60s, we tend to have a decrease in digestive enzymes. And we have digestive enzymes that come from several different places. They come from our pancreas, they come from our gallbladder. We start to get it in saliva. That's where it first starts digesting. So if you are cooking, that really helps to stimulate those digestive enzymes to get going. So when you're cooking and smelling the cooking, and then you're preparing all those digestive enzymes that are going into your stomach for the food to come and lay onto the digestive enzymes, that's so much more helpful for your digestion than not preparing for digestion. So if you're just eating fast and you put it in there, put your food in your stomach, and there's just not a whole lot of encompassing of that food to digest well. So this is why apple cider vinegar is something that can be helpful 10 minutes before eating or 30 minutes before eating. That starts to stimulate the digestive enzymes, not only in your saliva, preparing for the food to come, but also in your pancreas. And so if you have low digestive enzymes, or if your digestive enzymes are doing other work, and we'll talk about that in a minute, apple cider vinegar can be really helpful. If you have an adequate amount of digestive enzymes, you're under 40 and your GI tract's good, apple cider vinegar isn't always going to do a whole lot of good or a lot of help. So All right, so let's talk about digestive enzymes. They're very interesting. They help to digest food, but they also help to digest inflammation. They also digest bacteria that ends up in your intestinal tract or in your stomach that you're taking in with food. So they're very effective at getting throughout the body, not just the digestive tract. So if you do have an ongoing infection, and some infections are really messy, they create a lot of trash, viruses make they have little spaceships and they come along and they adhere to your body tissues, and then they leave the spaceship and they send all kinds of messages to send lots of inflammation. That's all trash that the body has to clean out. And so the digestive enzymes can be really helpful to help digest that up and take it out. So if your digestive enzymes are taking care of a chronic infection that you've not been able to mount an adequate response to, then your digestion is not going to work out. It is going to be compromised. You may not have enough digestive enzymes. So digestive enzymes can be helpful if you are, if you do have a chronic infection. Let's see. Food moving too fast or too slow can cause gas, as we talked about not digesting enough, but also moving too slow, such as with constipation. Also with IBS, sometimes you'll have a lot of constipation, sometimes you'll have a lot of diarrhea, sometimes you'll have a lot of both back and forth, and that can actually cause gas too, just a lot of irritation in the digestive system, trying to figure out what's going on. So gas is typically in the large intestine. That's why more people who feel bloated will not be able to tell you exactly where it is. It's kind of all over. The large intestine kind of goes up one side of the belly, across the top, and down the other side. So the bloating can feel like it's all over. Most of these people will be tooting to get it out. It's not something that they're burping. Now, if we end up with a condition called SIBO, or small intestinal bowel overgrowth, this is where the overgrowth of the microbiome has leaked into the small intestine, where you don't have bacteria, normal or abnormal, and it will cause some of the worst gas that people can experience, and that causes intense bloating. And these are some of the most miserable patients that I see, is gas in the small intestine, bloating, just really hard. It's trapped between the stomach and the large intestine. It's just really hard to get out. So let's talk about the bacterial impact on gas. If you have a imbalance, some bacteria will make a lot more gas than others. And if the body is not able to compensate for that, you will end up bloated. So you may note that you have a lot more gas when you eat beans. It's not likely the beans. It is likely the imbalance of bacteria to be able to take care of that digestive quality, that digestive fiber. So, of course, there are elements of washing the beans. Sometimes we can make less gas if we wash the beans, rinse the water, and use different water to cook it with. That can help with the gas. But in general, we consider the bacterial overgrowth, or too much of one or too little of another. All those imbalances can cause gas. So, microbiome is an important factor for digestion and for getting things, all the way through and all the way out, and for allowing the right connection with different parts of our body. Different microbes are responsible for helping to make neurotransmitters and so forth. So having your microbiome in balance is really helpful to cut down on the gas. I've found patients who have had long-term infections of things like Klebsiella. Klebsiella causes an incredible amount of gas. And I've seen patients that might identify this in a urine culture, or usually in a stool culture. Sometimes we'll end up with Klebsiella pneumoniae, but patients with Klebsiella do have a lot of gas. That particular microbe produces a ton. Hormones can also cause bloating and gas, especially if there's some sort of change going on, pregnancy or a menstrual change. So those can all cause a problem. Persistent bloating, if it's not coming and going, but it's kind of all the time, that is definitely something to get checked out. If you're not able to resolve it, if you're not able to go periods of time without it, it's a really good thing to make sure that we're not dealing with something a little more serious. So reach out to your doc and have a physical exam, get blood work. Let's take a look and make sure that we're not dealing with something more serious. There's a lot of organ systems in there, and it's hard to figure out where discomfort and gas is coming from sometimes. So important to keep that in mind. Right.
Shannyn,
Post-antibiotics is also a big reason for gas too. That's something that, or in gastroenteritis, you can have kind of a long-term effect.
Shannon, I was just going to ask because you mentioned something. I just want to make sure people,
Yeah.
because this is, by the way, this is the number one topic. I'm sure that's why you're hitting. But out
Yeah.
of the questions, this is the number
Good.
one topic. Gas and bloating is
Yeah.
something. When you said that there was the potential for something really bad to be happening that could be causing gas, what are you referring to?
Yeah, okay. I don't like to create a lot of worry, but bloating is the number one symptom that comes up with ovarian cancer. And ovarian cancer is pretty tricky to diagnose because they just think that they have digestive problems, and they may decide to take the summer and do a GAPS diet or something to improve it, and they may delay getting diagnosis. And ovarian cancer is very tricky after it's further along. So it's real easy to check for blood markers for cancer. That is a CA-125 cancer marker, and it should be run every 3 years for any female over the age of 30.
Okay. Yeah, I
And
didn't mean to be a
it's not
downer.
expensive. What's
Yeah,
that?
I didn't mean to be a downer. But
Oh
it
no,
was
I hate to overly worry people. I don't want them to be worried, but you do a CA cancer marker 125, it runs about $40 at LabCorp. It's not a big deal, and it's a great screening process. You really can't screen for it adequately any other way. I mean, you can get an abdominal exam, or your gyne can do a bimanual exam, we call it. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And by the way,
Absolutely.
before I turn you loose again, if y'all have questions, there is a Q&A. We have the preliminary questions, but if people have questions, feel free to ask in the Q&A that you should see at the bottom of the screen. So just tap on it and then write your question. All right, go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
No worries. So I think the next big topic was heartburn and reflux.
Okay.
Yeah. So heartburn and reflux is definitely a common one, and there's a lot of causes for it. So what happens in reflux is we have our esophageal tube, and then we have a sphincter on the bottom, and that sphincter should stay closed when there's food in there and the stomach is churning, right? So that nothing comes up, it should stay shut. But when food is coming down, it should allow the food to come down in the stomach, and then there's churning, and the lower esophageal sphincter should stay closed. And by the way, we have sphincters between all our transitions. So the stomach to the small and to the small intestine, the small intestine to the large intestine, and then there's 2 sphincters for our anus. So this comes into play when we talk about constipation. So that sphincter on the esophageal, the lower esophageal sphincter can be loose. And that's when acid flows up and causes problems. And that's why it's worse when you lay down. It's worse if you eat things that will loosen up that lower esophageal sphincter, like peppermint and chocolate and citrus, sometimes spice, all the good stuff, right? Alcohol, tomatoes, those are all possible things. Oh, coffee is another one that can loosen up that esophageal sphincter. Also, eating too much, and being overfull. We also know when women are pregnant, that's one of the things that they deal with later in pregnancy is GERD. So if that esophageal sphincter is kind of opening up and letting the acid up, that's what you're feeling. And some different people feel it different ways. Sometimes you can feel it kind of, kind of misty. Sometimes you actually have stuff come up in your mouth. Sometimes you regurgitate. Sometimes you just feel the burning. Sometimes it's just so, oh, you think you're having a heart attack. It's so, such a burny feeling. So, another cause that can cause that a lot esophageal sphincter to open up and loosen up is if you've had some sort of injury where that lower esophagus, which is set between your diaphragm, if it is shoved down further and then it doesn't have the functional space to open up or move, it will end up stuck, and then it can't close completely. So this will happen. Like I had a patient who fell off a roof and he landed on his feet. Boom! It jammed that esophageal that esophagus just right down into his diaphragm. I've had other people who have fallen on their butt, skating or something like that. So there are maneuvers that you can do, and quite a few chiropractors know the release maneuver. I teach it to my patients so they can do it as needed. Sometimes all it takes is once. A lot of times it takes multiple times to kind of allow that tissue to move things up. So that's also another reason. That also hiatal hernia, that's another reason. And then just not having enough acid in your stomach when you're digesting food to keep that sphincter closed. So that's the trigger to keep that sphincter closed is the right amount of acid. So I know it's so confusing and counterintuitive, because what do they give you when you have GERD is anti-acid, right? And that helps because then it cools all the acid. With the acid that we have present, we don't want to teach our body to make less. And if you try to come off of it, please, you have to taper. You can't just expect your body to make all the acid you need. Situation. So some of the things that we can do to make sure that we're getting that balance of acid is, of course, not overeating. Checking to make sure that we're not having any food and intolerances or prime. Many times patients who get diagnosed with diabetes 2, we can kind of figure out what's going on years before, because we start having digestive things, and the same cells that put out insulin in your pancreas, not the same cells, but the cells right next to the cells that put out digestive enzymes put out insulin. So they're right next to each other, and they both get a little lazy. So we have to keep those digestive enzyme cells working properly. They kind of got to elbow those insulin making cells to, get it working, so we don't end up with worse diabetes or end up with diabetes to begin with. So that's also a technique of diabetes. So digestive problems can often be a sign of something coming later, and we just have to, we have to be mindful of that, and you have to talk to an educated provider who has a preventative mindset for you, instead of just treating, the symptoms. And I feel like in GERD and reflux, that's what we're doing. And in this world, we can't just give you a supplement to replace a medication of the problem. We have to dig deeper and figure out, I wonder why you're having those problems. Where did it start? What can we flush out? And how can we get it back into the balance? The body really does want to digest food and be well. We just have to give it the right tools and try to figure out what we need to do. So, yeah, so I think that's what I have for reflux and heartburn. Some great tips or great tools, of course, eating slow, sitting down when you eat, taking time. Don't be upset when you're eating. We can really follow children's lead on digestive wisdom sometimes because they won't eat if they're upset. They'll be like, I'm not going to eat. And we really need to do the same. We shouldn't eat when we're upset. We should wait till we're calm. Eating and digestion is parasympathetic, and that is calming. That is not the fight and flight of the sympathetic. Digestion is all parasympathetic. So we need to be calm. We need to chew our food 33 times for each bite, make sure that we're able to digest it well. And then avoiding the things that are going to make that lower esophageal sphincter worse, identifying food intolerances, considering digestive enzymes. And then at the time of the burning, I really like deglycerized licorice. That is incredibly helpful for symptoms. Um, they have some tasty ones. They have some chewables. They have some capsules. Those you can mix it in water and drink it slowly. Those are all really, that is really helpful to kind of calm down all that burning. Also, stretching out, making a little more room. So, stretching out, making a little more room for that lower part of your esophagus so it has space to actually close all the way completely.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, most was.
What's that?
I was gonna ask a couple too. Go ahead first.
Yeah, as far as are you saying that the acid reflux comes from the food, like for example, a highly acidic food potentially, or maybe it depends on who you ask. It could be an alkaline food in the stomach creates acid, which comes up into that creates problems in the esophagus because the flap is not working, or does the food itself make the flap not work well? Which is the case?
Both. So sometimes patients can have reflux when they haven't eaten because the esophageal sphincter is not closing properly. Some foods can certainly make that esophageal sphincter not work as well, so it's more likely to come up. And then some foods can just aggravate it and just aggravate the acid situation and cause more acid. So all of the above, but I would say most of the time it's just that your esophageal sphincter is not closing properly.
Okay. And is there a point, and this is a question, Doreen's asking a question about this. Where is the point where your solutions may where somebody may need to go further than the solutions and go for conventional care, including, by the way, I know they do a surgery with mixed results where they try to create, fix that. I don't know. I've heard mixed results about it, but how do you know that? Her question in particular, maybe in light of that, her specific question is, what advice can you give for reflux due to prescribed medications when doctors give proton inhibitors which stop acid production?
Yeah, PPIs. Yeah. So those we just have to wean off so carefully because you will have a backlash of acid that will cause problems. And so we have to bring in other things like the deglycerized licorice. I also like glutamine. There's a number of other little tricks that we can use to kind of increase while we're lowering the medication, but you definitely have to taper off. And there are situations where patients have been on PPIs for a very long time, and it's probably not a wise thing to bring them off, to take them off, just because their body has adjusted to it. So I think I forgot to answer the original question though.
Well, just in general, my bigger question was, is there a place? I had never heard what you were just mentioning about chiropractic
Mm.
work to like get the flap
Yeah, yeah.
soothing. I never heard of that before. So I learned that. But is there a point at which the natural remedies don't work and you have to go for something more
Well,
conventional?
there's often times when we do need to use both. If we've had reflux for a very long time and somebody's been ignoring it, we definitely want to get it assessed because it puts us at risk for Barrett's esophagus, which puts us at risk for esophageal cancer. That's just no fun. So for somebody who is ignoring it, um, I would not like them to ignore it just to avoid conventional medicine. I think it's something that we need to, take care of those cells in the esophagus. We have these cilia cells, they're longer column cells, and they kind of sway back and forth to help food move along down the esophagus with the spasms that go on. And we have to take care of those because they will make abnormal cell structure when they're abused and they're worn down and they're more columns. And if they're worn down to, boxes, then they're really going to be a problem and cancer risk. So I really would prefer patients to, calm down on the acid coming up until we can kind of solve the problem.
Definitely it's a acid reflux is not something you should be wanting to. It's not something you just say I'm going to suck up and live with it. It's because there's
No.
potential for bigger problems than
Oh
just
yeah, it
discomfort.
does take years. It does take
Yeah.
years. If you're having that, occasional because you ate too much or you ate something that you react to, or there's a lot of emotional stuff going on, once in a while that kind of thing happens. You have alcohol, those kind of things loosen up your lower esophageal sphincter in the best of us, and so you're gonna have heartburn here and there. Listen to your body. Your body's trying to tell you, hello, thank you, body. Um, but yeah, long term, no, it's not something that we should just be letting go. Unfortunately, it's a pretty common symptom.
Okay. Somebody asked, you mentioned apple cider vinegar both for this and all as well as gas. What is a recommended, and by the way, apple cider vinegar, you're talking about just off the shelf, right? You don't have to buy a special
Yeah,
brand, just buy it
no,
from
generally
local store.
not.
Yeah, and
Generally
what,
not.
go
Yeah,
ahead. Sorry.
so I have them put it in about a little shot glass of water, and I put like maybe a tablespoon, a shot glass of water, and they drink it 10 minutes before the meal. Excuse me. So you don't need a whole lot, but there are cultured foods that also have apple cider vinegar in them. There's kombucha and so forth, and those are always an option too.
Okay, so kombucha would do the same thing if somebody wants to.
It wouldn't do the same thing. No,
Okay.
cultured foods are different. Cultured foods are providing microbiome.
Okay.
Yeah. And microbiome is a whole nother topic, Greg. I really think that we should probably just focus on microbiome in another webinar. I mean, now we're learning so much exploding information about it. And there's also categories of prebiotics and the probiotics. And then now there's postbiotics. And the postbiotics we're finding are really essential for anybody with movement disorders. So it's really fascinating.
So just a question, this people may find this interesting. I'm going to ask it, even though this may hurt our business for all I know. At some point, okay, probiotics were the rage, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
It just exploded,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
then maybe 8 or 9 years ago, if I go to a health show, people are starting to talk prebiotics, which prebiotics is essentially fiber and sugar that probiotics thrive on.
Stimulant. Yeah. Hmm.
And now we're talking about postbiotics. And I guess my question for you is this marketing spin or is there legit science behind prebiotics and postbiotics? Or, in other words, is it just convenience to sell more stuff or is there real science behind it?
So the postbiotics can be incredibly soothing to the gut, and so the science is pretty strong. And I personally put all my patients with movement disorders on a postbiotic because, and we're still in the making of postbiotics, so there aren't very many on the market. But I always just because why not? They're willing to do it, they want to do it, and the research is showing down the road that gut soothing and these particular strains are really helpful. So, the one trend I see with probiotics, which is really interesting because they've been such a popular thing, is patients. I have more patients coming into me that have an overgrowth of microbiome. They have too many probiotics too many bugs in their gut and it's causing problems. And so we have a rise in SIBO. I don't know if I can say that it's connected to that, but when I do stool panels, I find that patients have incredibly high probiotics. And I'm like, please go off your probiotics because they can cause you a lot of discomfort. So there's still people I put on probiotics, and I'm very specific about making sure that they have balance because we can actually see the families now. So I think they're probably overused. If you're traveling, I think it's a good time to use probiotics. If you have immune issues, I think it's a good time for probiotics,
So
Yeah.
I want to mention that because obviously we sell a lot of probiotics.
Yeah.
Um, the the thing that I've noticed over 20 years, 25 years, I know I don't look like I'm 20, but I've done this for 25 years. And the thing that I've noticed about probiotics is the marketing has changed. In other words, 20 years ago, a capsule of a probiotic would have maybe, I don't know, 7 or 800 million organisms. And then somebody comes along and says, no, you need 4 billion organisms in a capsule. And now regularly you're seeing probiotics that have 40 billion it's
Right.
and it's just, do you feel like that's contributed to the where people are just suddenly getting too much?
Yeah,
Too,
there's so many variables, and I find, and by the way, yeah, you don't look as old as your company, and it's probably just all the wonderful supplements you're
yeah,
taking,
yeah.
the probiotics that you're.
And the fried okra helps too.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly not the diet, so
Yeah,
we know
yeah,
it's got to be the supplements, right?
yes, yeah.
So the deal with probiotics is we have to have a place for them to live. So if your gut doesn't have all the villi and all the crypts and crannies and stuff for it to live in, and you're dulled, you're going to have to keep taking probiotics because they don't have anywhere to flourish. But if they have a condo to live in and they can make their own peptidoglycan and farm their own food and kind of help self-support themselves, then the probiotics are going to live in your gut and they're going to be there. And then gastroenteritis comes along and it kind of kills everything off and they go into hiding, deep into hiding. And in your appendix included, that's what it's for. And then when the gastroenteritis is over, then they all come out and they rebuild their farms. So if you don't have farmland for them, you do need to take it because it's going to keep getting washed out. It's not a living breathing thing going on there. So, and they're also very symbiotic. So they help each other out. They're great neighbors and they keep the bad guys out. So they see a bad guy come in and they're immediately triggering the immune system to let them know that somebody's not there. So all those microbiome, really your whole goal in life is to carry around bugs. You just got to make sure you carry around enough of them and carry around the right ones.
Yeah, so what do you think? And but I don't want to get too far astray, but I got to ask, what do you think about the marketing from Pepsi that just released a prebiotic Pepsi? Have you seen it?
Oh, wow. That's so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I
a
know.
it's
Coke.
apparently Kelsey can jump in here because I've seen her drinking them. Um, they're 40 calories, so and I think it's all natural sweetener, but
Hmm.
it has prebiotic material in it. I was just wondering if you'd seen it and
And
what
it's
you thought.
It
Is
is.
it carbon?
Hmm.
So carbonation is a problem, right? Would you say? Not necessarily.
I
Too
mean,
much
all the
carbonation?
time.
Yeah. I mean, I've had one. I thought it was okay.
It tastes
Not,
fine.
yeah.
Huh,
But
yeah.
okay, I digress.
Would you?
It's interesting to me though, and I just want to make two quick points for those that are listening. First of all, if you wonder if you're getting the right balance of probiotics, we're not trying to sell you more probiotics. We want you to be healthy. So if you're taking a lot of probiotics and you wonder, maybe you're spending a lot of money with us on probiotics and you wonder about it, if you can back off, do the free consultation and it may save you some money. It's not likely that she's going to tell you to take a lot more probiotics. Probably not. So maybe just take us up on that offer and see if we can save some money on probiotics. Again, we're not trying to sell. We're not trying to.
Yeah. And the good probiotics, they need to stay in the fridge. There are a few travel versions that are more expensive. that are formulated so that they're shelf stable. Spore probiotics are shelf stable, but lactobacillus, bacilli, and those strains. I like the one that we have because it has a Streptococcus thermophilus strain in it, and that is a good strain. It's really competing against strep, as many people know. So especially there's a lot of people in our society. I see a lot of strep on stool panels that are just overrun. There's too much. So the Streptococcus thermophilus really helps to keep that under control. So yeah.
Yeah, there's I can tell you will not go on many webinars hosted by supplement companies where they tell you you might be taking too many probiotics. This is the first. I can promise you, you're not going to find many of those. But seriously, that's great information. Okay, a couple quick questions here. I want to jump back to Jim. We're going to flip back to reflux for just a second.
Mhm.
He said, "What's the safest proton inhibitor or other medication to address heartburn? I can't seem to live without them. I'm taking, and I don't know how to say this. It's famotidine, Famotadin now."
Yeah, so there's obviously a lot more going on. And so since I don't have a big clinical picture of what's going on, I mean, this has been going on for a good 10 to 20 years. So it's not, what she's describing tells me that it's not something that's new. So we'd have to dig back and just kind of see where things have gone awry and see if we can deal with the cause. I mean, it seems like the digestive system or, the stomach is involved. And sometimes we have to dig back and we find other things that are, at the beginning of this. How did this start? How was it when it first started? And forth. So I think we just really have to support those underlying organs before we're really going to see much shift, if that makes sense. I mean, we can definitely try to nourish and love the esophagus and the stomach and the digestion and so forth, but I just don't see that. And exercise and diet and stress management, all those things can go a really long way, but it looks like she's missing a key of figuring out what the cause is, she or he.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm hearing.
Yeah. But you said also you have to wean off of those very, very slowly.
Yeah, you have to wean off of them, and your patients need a lot of help. This is not something they can do on their own. I mean, I've had patients come to me who are super frustrated, or they have you know knuckled, they've just grin and bared it, to get through. And there's no reason to be miserable. There's definitely ways that we can support them as they're going along that journey to help. I mean, there's slippery elm, that's a botanical that is really helpful for soothing everything. So just coming up with a path forward and figuring out the foods that might be bothering them, giving them, maybe having a liquid meal, just coming up with some specific guidelines just for that particular person can be helpful to successfully wean them off. Again, if they've been doing it for 10 to 20 years, I mean, their body's accustomed to it, and it's really, we might be able to get them on a lower dose, but
Okay. So guys, so Jim, reach out and maybe you're probably not in San Diego, but if maybe Shannyn can
yeah,
help
I'm
you.
happy to answer emails.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love this stuff, and I love to see patients find answers, I
Yeah.
want them to get on with their life and do what they're passionate about. And this is my passion, so I'm grateful to be able to help people.
Cool. Somebody else mentions, and I guess I think I know what you're going to say here, but you've surprised me a couple times tonight. Somebody says a close friend was on antibiotics for 6 months, cleared an infection, was told to push probiotics. Obviously, antibiotics and probiotics work together, or no, they work in anti and pro or in opposites, right? So, is there truth to the theory that I think a lot of people probably hear that if you're taking antibiotics, they're killing good bacteria along with bad bacteria, so you have to replenish the good bacteria with probiotics. Is there validity in that?
Yeah, so when you take antibiotics, you don't really kill everything. You don't have a sterile gut. You have still some good bacteria and still some bad bacteria or opportunistic infections. And we have to encourage the good bacteria to grow back faster or just as fast as a bad bacteria. And that's not typically what happens. When you take antibiotics, afterwards, a bad bacteria will grow back faster, and then you can end up with C. difficile. You can end up with a number of different things. The other thing that antibiotics do is they really just kill off the majority of bacteria of families, and they kill the families down to probably about 2. And really, it takes about 2 years to grow back to 7 or 9. And we want 50 to 200 families. So you can see how limiting that is, because each family has its own job, whether it is helping the development of the immune system, helping neurotransmitters. Each family has its own connective job that it's associated with. And so when you narrow that down, the whole body suffers. So what we do when patients go on antibiotics is we have them take something called Saccharomyces boulardii. And this is like a mushrooming yeast that just creates clouds running through your gut and protects everything. It's like just a cloud through the street, and you can't really see what's going on. So it helps protect infections from overgrowing while you're taking the antibiotics and after the antibiotics. So I just have patients buy a bottle, start taking it with the antibiotics, finish the bottle, and then they can switch to regular probiotics. So now, are the antibiotics killing off the probiotics if you were to take them? Probiotics have several, when you take a probiotic from a bottle, they have several roles. And one of them is kind of a fiber role. So yes, you may be killing it and it may be washing out, but there are some indications that it is doing some good. So if a patient has the means to take the probiotics and the Saccharomyces while they're taking the antibiotic, if they had to take the antibiotic, I always encourage my patients to, follow up with me if at all possible. I want to help prevent antibiotics if we at all can. I want to educate them and prevent it. But if they have to take the antibiotic, and it's a safer thing to do, and they have the means to take the probiotics and the Saccharomyces as well, we're not doing any harm, and we're potentially doing good. However, many patients feel financially challenged to do all of that. And so taking the antibiotics, taking the Saccharomyces, and then when you're done, doing the probiotics to re-inoculate the flora.
I'm gonna jump in and say that you've said a lot of big words, and I will be summarizing everything that she said for the attendance and sending you an email.
Okay.
And I know someone just asked how to spell the Saccharomyces.
Oh, yeah. Saccharomyces boulardii. Yeah, so that's Saccharomyces. And then the boulardii is Bourlardii.
Got it.
I think I got that right.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, is there a brand of that you recommend?
I see that they all work. So, I mean, I there's certain companies I like better than others, but no, they all work. Just get it at your local, wherever you're traveling or wherever you are, get it at the local health food store. Sometimes they'll have it at, some odd places. Yeah.
Okay. And then a quick question about the role of, I guess when I was growing up, we didn't have probiotics. And so we, I guess, came to the conclusion that yogurt was the best way to get good
lacto. That's the lactose strain.
Yeah. But again, am I right in saying the problem with that is yogurt per ounce of yogurt is going to have a much lower concentration. You'd have to eat a lot of yogurt to get the level that you'd find in a probiotic, but also the diversity of strains doesn't exist in yogurt. Is that right? There's only 1 or 2 strains in a typical yogurt.
Well, the tricky thing also is that some of the lactose are tagged. So we know that that particular strain that's in the probiotic has a particular effect. We are absolutely sure that what to expect from it because it hasn't changed. in, in yogurt, sometimes the lactobacillus can change forms and may not be the actuals, the same exact strain. So that's the advantage of probiotics is many of them are tagged and their exact strain that we expect them to be in. They're very reproducible. The effects are reproducible.
Okay. Um, okay. Good. All right. So I've caught up the questions. We've talked about acid reflux and we've talked about, oh yeah, one quick question. I think you might have touched on this, but there's a couple questions that came in on this issue of acid. I have heard both sides of this. I've heard that acid reflux is or made worse by eating acidic foods, but I've also heard the opposite, that taking
Yeah.
one foods actually leads your body to produce more acid. What is the thinking on that?
Yeah, it's really individually uh pertinent. So it's one of the reasons why I kind of avoided that question
Yeah.
because it depends on the individual, you know? Um, some people it can make work, people it doesn't make a difference. Um, and some of those foods have really high quality nutrients that we need. Like tomatoes have a lot of lutein and it's the major source of lutein. So um, I don't like to say avoid acidic foods because that includes tomatoes and it has, I like a huge diversity of fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds and beans and those kind of things. So I would say it can make it worse, but it's often not the cause.
Okay. One
Yeah.
of the things, by the way, if I'm going to speak from a caring sunshine perspective for just a second, one of the reasons we brought Dr. Shannyn on 2 years ago, actually a big reason, is because I believe so strongly in balance. I think truth generally is not going to be in extremes. The farther you go to extremes, the more you tend to lose a view of truth. And I think that's true of medicine too. So I always like it when people are honest about the complexity of these problems, right? These problems are very, very complex, which you hear over and over again. Maybe in some cases, a webinar is just not the best place to answer these questions because it's individualized.
Yeah, yeah.
Reach out. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, what I do just as far as medicine is it's hard work because we have to take the individual into play, and it's not like, oh, you have GERD, then you're going to take this. Like that's, it's a different way of thinking than a pharmaceutical way of thinking. Instead of taking this pharmaceutical, take this supplement. Yeah, I don't do that, and I talk a lot about food and lifestyle and people are happier. I found I had a follow up with a woman today who thought she would never be able to change her diet. And she was just so proud of herself. And she had seen so much progress in her digestion. I started asking her questions. How's your constipation? Oh, I don't have it anymore. How's your belly pain? Oh, I didn't realize how much things had changed. So empowering people to find balance and answers and getting them to thrive, I think is harder than just regular medicine.
yeah. But
Harder,
you
harder
see,
for them too.
health is so you see all this jerking from one extreme to another. You have the people that say only eat meat, the people that say you should never. There's always a pet food. My dad, for example, is on a yogurt kick where he thinks yogurt is the panacea for all the world's health problems. And before that, and it's just we have a tendency to get pulled toward these extreme scenarios. And what I always like from you is balance. No, don't avoid acidic food. We need a balance of diet, and there's actually a case for conventional medicine once in a while. There's a place for
Yeah,
antibiotics.
yeah,
There's a place. So it's not like it's not because I do see, and I'm just speaking here from a philosophical standpoint. I see in my industry how we fall into the same trap that conventional medicine does, where it's got to be our way or the highway. So anyway, I
Yeah, yeah.
appreciate the time.
And in my practice, I have patients who are totally anti-conventional all the way, and I want to be there to support them. And then there's patients who have no interest whatsoever in nutrition or some of the tools, like, they want to go mostly conventional and they're just here for, and I want to support them because that is, they get a choice. They get to make their choices in healthcare. And I think that also helps us as individuals understand why the people around us make the crazy decisions. We think they're crazy decisions about their health that they do. And it's because they get a choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on because we're running out of time. Leo asked, he has food sitting in his upper GIT. Always have to manipulate my body, my massaging the back of my neck, my scapula to get the food moving or gas or something. And I noticed that bending forward positions generally help me burp and release gas. Is this an issue related to reflux? Do you think a chiropractor's manipulation can help me? Is this an acid reflux issue? And do you think a chiropractor's manipulation could help there?
So it sounds like it might be more complicated than just that. But yeah, I think so when I talk about uh the esophageal sphincter manipulation, it's different than what we think of as a chiropractic manipulation. It's more of a functional medicine approach, I guess. But it's helping the tissues move. It's not helping the bones move, so to speak. But yeah, I mean, I definitely, it's not harmful to do an esophageal sphincter maneuver. Um, but it sounds like there's more going on again. I mean, um, it sounds like maybe she could use some liver support from a little bit that I'm hearing.
So the issue again, yeah, because the issue she's talking about gas as well and burping, which is not a so yeah, there's more going on.
Yeah, there's more going on, and it sounds like it's upper, you know, upper digestive system.
Okay. All right. Feel free to ask more questions as they come in. We just have a few minutes, but food sensitivities. We had a few questions come in on this. Lactose intolerance, gluten, daily sensitivities, gluten testing. I'm just hitting some of the highlights. Glucose feed, glyphosate on wheat theory, and is dairy
Yeah.
my bloating? You want to talk about that a little bit? Lactose, I guess lactose and gluten.
Yeah, let
And
me talk about the glyphosate real quick
yeah.
because that's a common problem that is found in pesticides. And pretty much gly glyphosate is a pesticide that's sprayed on wheat and it doesn't know where the fence line is. So it's pretty widespread in certain parts of the country, and wheat is pretty um, ubiquitously contaminated. There is a glyphosate lab test that you can run to see if you have it high in your system, and I've had multiple patients come high. So, all right. So then the lactase means that you have a reaction to a certain part of the dairy. It's pretty easy to identify, and patients do well. I would say it's not as common as it used to be. Food intolerance testing can be really helpful. Now, let's talk about that just for a minute because there's different parts of the immune system. So there's IgE, which is anaphylactic or hive reactions. So that's something that we usually know right away, right? And then there are something called IgA reactions, and those we know right away too. That's when you get a cold sore in your mouth after eating something, or you have to go to the bathroom immediately after you eat, or you have trouble swallowing right away as you're eating that particular food, so those are things that you know right away. The food intolerance testing that I run the most often is called IgG, and this is the food intolerance testing that can take 4 to 10 days to get a symptom, and it's super confusing, even if you're keeping a log. So it just helps, again, take the detective work out of it and figure out what you might be reacting to.
Okay, I got to jump in there because I guess we got a hard break. We get cut off, don't we, Kels?
Mhm.
First of all, I obviously we could talk about this a lot longer. And
Yeah.
by the way, I noticed I've never seen a seminar or a thing like that where everybody hangs around at the ends. That's credit to you. Shannyn. Everybody's still
Well,
with
it
us.
sounds like I'm talking to what they are trying, what they're listening to. So,
Yeah, yeah, everybody's still here, so that's incredible. Thanks everybody for showing up. We're going to do this a lot more. We're going to start doing this. I know it's
yeah,
been
let's do this
6 months,
again. This is fun.
but we'll keep doing it. So Kelsey will be in touch with our next one, which we'll probably do at least once a month
It's
going
gonna be
forward.
monthly on this Wednesday.
Okay.
Great. And your wife already knows what to cook, country fried
I
chicken.
know. She's
Yeah,
got the
yeah.
next one.
I don't want any sermons. Don't give me any sermons about my country fried steak.
Oh, I wasn't. You get to choose.
All right.
It's
Okay.
emotional food.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much. Robin, we'll get to your question offline about the seed. And so everybody else is coming in. Thanks much again. But they're going to cut us off here on Zoom in a second. But again, thanks everybody. Thanks, Shannyn, for the help on
Yes.
this. And
Yep,
we'll
you're
talk to you guys
welcome.
later.
Have a good
All right.
night.
All right.
All right.